and welcome to section 1 of the Strawberries and Cream blanket. If you haven't met me before, I'm Hannah from Untitled Crochet and I'm delighted to meet you and work on this blanket with you. We are running a crochet along in July 2022, but if it's not that time anymore, then please don't worry. I'll put links in the description for where you can find the free version of the pattern, where you can purchase a PDF to download, and where you can also purchase the entire thing as a course. So have a little look down below, see which option suits you best, and let's get going. So for the first part of our blanket, we are ready to begin with working our gauge swatch and also then launching straight into section 1, which is a closed granny block stitch. And I say it's closed because it works over the top. You don't have any great big holes or anything. You work over the top and into the stitches below. Now that will become really obvious when we do it, but it just makes for a slightly firmer fabric and a less holey fabric, if that makes sense. So we are going to begin by selecting our first colour, which is this one here. And if you're here to make your gauge swatch, then you can do it all in one colour if you like, to save you lots of ends and changes, or you can do it in different colours. It's entirely up to you, but we'll work as if we're working for the blanket here in our colour sequence. So if you're ready to go ahead and start making the blanket, you're going to chain 146 now. But if you're going to work the gauge swatch with me, then you're going to chain just 26 because that'll give us enough stitches to know if we're the right size or not. So we're going to pop a slip knot on the hook, and then you're going to chain out the right amount for whether you're working the swatch or whether you're working the blanket. So I'm going to do 26. So once you've got your chain, whether it's 26 like I've got here for the swatch, or whether it's 146 for the entire blanket when you're ready to start making, we're going to work row 1 in this same colour, and we're going to work a US treble stitch, which is a UK double crochet stitch, and you're going to start by putting it in the 4th chain from the hook. So we find that by going 1, 2, 3 and 4. So our 4th chain from the hook. And what I like to do is, rather than going in here at the front of the chain, I like to swivel so we go into the back bump of the chain. It just gives a neater finish on the bottom edge of your project. And so you turn your chain and you'll see you've got these bumps going along. Each of those will then become a stitch. So whichever you prefer is absolutely fine, but yarn over and then work in the 4th chain from the hook. So we then yarn over and pull through, we yarn over, pull through 2, and we yarn over and pull through 2. And that's our first stitch made. And then we're going to just do one of those stitches in each back bump of the chain that we come across. So we're going to yarn over and pull through, yarn over and pull through 2, yarn over and pull through 2. And we go all the way along our chain doing that. Yarn over, hook into the next back bump, yarn over and pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. And so what that will then give us is a lovely line of UK treble stitches, or US double crochet stitches. And the reason that we skipped and worked into the 4th chain from the hook at the beginning there was so that that forms a stitch at the end. So that will then be tall enough to match these stitches that we have. So this one here at the end is a stitch when you're on the return pass. And so for our swatch here, we're going to end up with 24 stitches when we get to the end of the row. And if you're making the blanket itself now, you're going to end up with 144 stitches. And now as we approach the end of the row, we're going to get ready on the last yarn over of this stitch we're going to change colour. So rather than yarn over and finish that stitch, we're going to break our yarn. We're going to get our next colour, which in this sequence is going to be a yarn A. Every alternate colour is your dominant colour, your yarn A. And we're going to complete that stitch with that colour. So yarn over and pull through to complete your stitch. And then you turn and you're ready to work row 2. So for row 2, we're going to need to use our half treble stitches, the UK half treble or US half double crochet stitches that we've learned. And we're going to chain 1 to give us room and height at the beginning of our row. And then we're going to work a half treble or half double crochet into that very first stitch, like that. And then we're going to chain 2. Now don't worry about these chains because they will be hidden on the next row when you create that. And then we need to skip the next 2 stitches. So skipping the next 2 stitches literally means you just ignore them. So we're going to go 1, 2, we're not going to work into those at all. And then what we're going to do is just pull our stitches apart here. And we're going to look, because this is the space that we need to put our next stitch into. These rows, these alternate rows, they don't work stitches into stitches, they work them between stitches. So we're going to yarn over and we're going to work a half treble, a UK half treble, a US half double crochet in that space, so between the stitches, just like that. And so you see it pulls it apart a bit. And then we need to chain 2. And then instead of skipping 2 stitches, we're now going to skip 3, because as you'll see on the blanket itself, they're in sets of 3 stitches. So we have 1, 2, and 3, and then we're going to pop the stitch in between the next 2 stitches. So yarn over, pull up a loop and pull it through, yarn over and pull through 3. And then we'll repeat that process. We're going to chain 2, we're going to skip 3, and then we're going to pop a stitch before the next stitch comes. We're going to chain 2, we're going to skip 3, and then pop a stitch in here before the next stitch. And you carry on all the way along the row. Until we get to these last 3. And what we need to do there is chain 2 like that, and then we're going to skip 2, and then in the very last stitch we'll work a half treble or half double crochet stitch. So just skip 2 at the end there and then work a stitch into that very last one. And then we're ready to change colour again. So rather than yarn over and finish that stitch, we're going to break our yarn and you're going to select your next colour. And then we'll complete this stitch with our next colour. And then we'll turn and we're ready to begin row 3. So row 3 is where the magic really begins, because we're going to hide all of these chains here. So we're going to chain 1 to begin our row, and then we're going to pop a half treble or half double crochet stitch in that very first one that we have here. And then what we're going to need to do now is work over the top of this chain, and we're going to find the next stitch in 2 rows below. So we're always going to be going into a colour and never into this white champagne white that we have here. So you're going to go over the top of the chain and into this stitch here that we come across. We're going to yarn over and pull through, yarn over and pull through 2, and yarn over and pull through 2. Because this row we are making UK treble stitches, which are US double crochet stitches. We're going to do those all the way along this row. And then we're going to yarn over and we're going to find the next stitch from 2 rows below. And we're going to pop our hook through there, and I'll twist it over so that you can see how we encase the 2. So I'm going all the way through that stitch there in the bottom, and I'm going to go over the top of this chain as well from the previous row. I'm going to yarn over and pull through, yarn over and pull through 2, yarn over and pull through 2. and you'll see that it completely wraps the chain within it. So the only thing we're going to see popping through are these little flecks, these little half treble stitches here. And then what we need to do is just carry on and find each stitch from 2 rows below and pop a UK treble into them. So yarn over, find the next stitch of 2 rows below, go over making sure you encase that chain from the row below, and work a UK treble into that stitch. And we just carry on. Find the next set. Now sometimes it's tricky when you come across the next stitch in the white colour because it sort of squishes the next stitch. So you need to make sure that you get your sets of 3 here. So we have 1 there, 2, and then 3. So we need to carry on doing that to the end of the row. And then as we come to the last set here, you'll see that you've only got 2 stitches of this set, and then you get to the very last stitch of the previous row, and what we're going to do is put a UK half treble into that stitch. So yarn over, pop it through the last stitch of the row, pull up a loop, and then you're going to yarn over, but you're going to do that in your new colour, and we're going to change back to A again. And we yarn over and pull through to complete the row. So, would you believe it? You know everything you need to know for section 1 now. So rows 2 and rows 3 are what we call the set pattern and the repeat for section 1. So if you're working the blanket, you just follow along in the pattern, the colour sequence that is written there. But if you're making the swatch at this point, then what you need to do is keep going until it measures about 15 centimetres, because what we want is a bit of wriggle room either side. Because if I show you in this bigger swatch, the edges are harder to measure than the centre. What you want is a good amount of centre stitch to measure your gauge. So now just keep repeating rows 2 and rows 3 of this section 1 until you've completed all of the colours. This section uses every single colour that we have in the blanket. And then when you get to this top row here, we'll be ready to work this intersection part. This is kind of a bit of a breaker between each section that we work each time we get to a completed part of a section here. So go ahead and finish your section 1, and I will meet you back here and we will work this intersection part.